The season of arrivals has already been one for the record books, but imagine my shock when I finally get in from work last night and find that Bungie has unleashed one of the most creative exotics in the history of Destiny as a franchise. That exotic is the Ruinous Effigy Void Trace Rifle. And in this video, we're going to be talking a bit about that weapon, how you can get it, and how you can unlock the catalyst for it as well. Let's go ahead and jump on into it. Now, this exotic weapon comes from the exotic quest Growth, and you can pick it up by heading this week over to the Prismatic Recaster next to the Drifter. You'll be grabbing it alongside the weekly Means to an End quest, and for the most part, the first step is really basically going to be the same between the two of them. You're going to be doing exactly what you've been doing for the past couple of weeks if you've been doing the weekly Means to an End. You'll first need to complete some contact events and collect traces. For the most part, this is pretty self-explanatory. Again, it's what you've been doing to unlock the interference mission for the past couple of weeks. Go ahead and run those contact events and then collect those traces by taking out Powerful Taken. And this week, the best way to collect those traces is probably by running Tier 2 or Tier 3 of the Reckoning. By running Tier 3 of the Reckoning a couple of times, I was able to get this done really quickly. Anyways, once you've gotten all that done, you'll unlock the interference quest. Go and complete that as well. Once you've done that, you're ready to move on to the next step. After completion of the interference mission, you'll need to find Calcified Fragments. And believe me, yeah, I know, a lot of the Destiny 1 veterans in the crowd just had a shiver down their spines. But believe me, this one's not nearly as bad as what we had to do on the Dreadnought back in the Taken King. This time around, you only have to find 25 Calcified Fragments that are going to be spread across Io, Mercury, Mars, and Titan. Coincidentally, a lot of the planets that are going to be going away when Beyond Light goes live later this year. There will be 10 calcified fragments to be found on Io and 5 for each of the remaining planets. And thankfully, it's really easy to find them. The location of these fragments will show up on your HUD whenever you pull out your Ghost. So you can hop on your Sparrow, pull out your Ghost, and then just drive around until you see them pop up. But of course, we'll be showing you where exactly to find all 25 of them right here in this video. And ultimately, it shouldn't take too long to find them all. We'll pop back in when this section's done. Alright, once you've found all 25 of the calcified light fragments, it's time to move on to the next step. Now you need to take down 15 of Savathun's marionettes. Savathun's marionettes are basically going to be champion level Taken that are going to spawn across different worlds. Right now you can find them mostly on Io or on Titan. These are special enemies that are generally tied to the contact event, but you actually don't need to be in the contact event itself to kill them. You can actually farm marionettes by heading to different world spaces. Right now, the Rupture on Io or the Rig on Titan are going to be your best bet. If I had to give you one, I'd say head to the Rig. Generally speaking, while Contact is active in Siren's Watch, bonus marionettes will start spawning over in the Rig. So you can head to the Rig, and if there aren't any marionettes there, head back to Siren's Watch, place a contact event beacon, and then travel back to the Rig. That seems to trigger these guys spawning on a pretty reliable basis. Anyways, the way it'll generally work in the Rig is that 3 groups of Taken Disruptors will spawn around the Rig in a specific order. First the Blade Brothers, then the Shield, then the Blights. These messages, of course, will pop up in your world chat, so pay attention to them. Disruptors are pretty easy. They're basically smaller versions of contact bosses. Like the Blade Brothers, you have to push them together in order to break their shield and then take them down. Once you do, then they'll spawn one of Savathun's marionettes, which you can take down. Of course, the giant shielded Centurion Taken is one that can spawn. He'll basically drop with a big blight. You take down the blight, and then his shield will drop, and you can do damage to him. And after you've done a bit of damage to him, he'll spawn 2 giant Taken ogres as well as one of Savathun's marionettes. So again, the marionettes will generally always be champion level enemies, so keep an eye out for those. And then of course the Disruptor is just a giant ogre who spawns next to a Savathun marionette. Keep an eye out for these big Takens. Again, they'll be announced when they pop up in the Rig area. So once you see that text popping up saying that Taken Disruptors have arrived, you'll know the Taken are there. You'll be able to take them out pretty easily. But anyways, farm up 15 of those Savathun marionettes and you'll move on to the final step of this quest, Feed. Now this step is pretty simple, but it might ask you to do something a little bit annoying. You probably had to run Gambit or Reckoning beforehand to get the traces, the umbral traces that you were looking for. Well, you're gonna have to do that part again. For the final step, you need to finish Gambit or Reckoning rounds, get Void kills, and chain precision kills. And once again, Reckoning is going to be your best option here. Jump into Reckoning with your favorite Void weapon, and once you've run a few rounds of Tier 3, you'll have most of this stuff done. After about 3 rounds of Reckoning Tier 3, I was able to complete basically everything except chaining precision multi-kills, which of course then I just loaded up the Whisper, sat in for about 4 minutes and got that part done. Once you've finished all 3 of these challenges, return to the Prismatic Recaster in the tower for your ultimate gift, the Ruinous Effigy Exotic Void Trace Rifle. And then pat yourself on the back, because you definitely earned this one. Now let's go ahead and take a look at your new prize. The Ruinous Effigy comes with the special ability Transmutation. Final blows with this weapon collapse victims into Void Transmutation Spears. Basically, when you shoot and kill enemies with this thing, it turns them into kind of a Void relic that you can then pick up. Perk-wise, it's also got Hammer Forge Rifling for increased range, Particle Repeater for increased stability, and its special trait, Evolution. Transmutation spheres you create can be picked up and wielded as weapons by you or your allies. And of course, just like other weapons like the Sword of Crota or whatever that you can pick up, you can utilize a light attack with your shoulder buttons, a heavy attack with your triggers, and you can guard and drain nearby combatants the same way you can guard with swords. Meaning, of course, this weapon basically creates relics for you to pick up and use in PvE. Of course, it also comes with composite stock for +5 to stability and +5 to handling. Now, this is one of the most unique exotics we've ever had in the history of Destiny. As for its performance as a trace rifle, well, it performs about as well as every other trace rifle you've probably had in the game. But its ability to turn enemies into void relics that you can then use it's pretty darn neat. Now, the light attack does a moderate amount of damage, while the heavy attack is basically the old Rift Slam. Again, for you veterans of Destiny 1. The Ruinous Effigy does also have a catalyst available. I was able to get it basically after getting my first kill using the weapon, and I'd imagine it's probably going to be the same for you. The challenge for completing that catalyst, of course, requires for you to get 5,000 kills with this weapon. So go load up the Whisper mission or wherever you want to farm out enemies and get that thing done, because it does add a pretty significant boost of power to the effigy itself. With the catalyst active, this weapon will deal increased damage against targets damaged by transmutation spheres. So you kill an enemy, you drop a sphere, you pick it up, you hit an enemy with it, that enemy will then take more damage from the Ruinous Effigy. Additionally, another way to get the catalyst done for this is to go blow up all 50 of Savathun's eyes, of course, which we have a guide video to here on the channel. That should either be up by the time this video goes up or maybe just a little bit afterwards. Anyways, the Ruinous Effigy here is actually kind of interesting because the buff that it gives itself actually does stack with other buffs like Weapons of Light or Well of Radiance or Oppressive Darkness, whereas some of the other buffs that other weapons have generally don't. So this thing basically, when you got the catalyst fully done, gives itself a 30% damage buff that can then also be stacked with other stuff that you're probably going to be using in your in-game runs. Very, very good. Definitely worth getting the catalyst for this thing. Anyways, the Ruinous Effigy's performance in PvE is pretty darn good. The light attack is enough to take down most red bar enemies, and the heavy attack does a fairly significant amount of damage. Again, that can be buffed with other things, and of course, when you've got the catalyst, it buffs the damage of the Ruinous Effigy itself. In PvP, well, the light attack does about 150 damage, so not quite enough to kill. The heavy slam does 300 damage, so it's enough to wipe out everybody but a guardian and their super, and the range on it is actually pretty darn good. So if you wind up using this weapon in PvP, the heavy slam is definitely the way to go. Maybe mix it with something like blink so that you can kind of maneuver around enemies and then slam really quickly. It's got a surprising amount of range and will help as a kind of an anti-shotgun sort of thing. Although the gun itself isn't really that great in PvP. It's got less range than a lot of the other trace rifles out there. So that's something you'll definitely have to work around. The shield option on this also counts as an AoE attack. It's really, really cool. It's almost like a mini bubble that you carry around yourself. And while the damage it does in PvE is pretty good, you can't hold on to it forever. It does eventually start to drain your health. And I tried to mitigate that with stuff like Well of Radiance, Devour, and of course my Rift and all of that. Eventually, that does help you keep the shield up a little bit longer, but eventually the game just decides, okay, you've had enough, and will just start overwhelming your health. So there seems to be a hard-coded limit for how long the game will actually let you sit there and do the AoE shield. But again, in PvE, it's pretty powerful. It's pretty good as a PvE AoE damage option. Actually, better as a damage option than it is as a damage reduction skill. But anyways, Guardians, that's pretty much it. That's how you can get your hands on the Ruinous Effigy Void Exotic Trace Rifle. Hopefully this guide helped you, and if it did, feel free to drop a like, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest stuff we're putting out. I gotta go hunt down the rest of Savathun's eyes. So I'm out for now. As always, I am the Black Link. You Guardians, stay frosty.